Jumping back into the action now, recapping some more Week 12 games on the Chip Shot Football podcast. We're looking at the Seahawks and Cardinals game, a very entertaining NFC West divisional game. We're just going to get accustomed to saying that each and every week because all these division games, in particular in the NFC West, have been super exciting, just close, and you never really know what you're going to get out of it. Usually, you get these high-scoring games, all these touchdowns, but yesterday, or 2 days ago, we saw a very different outcome. We saw the Seahawks still get the best of the Arizona Cardinals. It was 16-6 at the final whistle, and with that victory, the Seahawks go even with the Arizona Cardinals in record at 6-5. Why is that important? It's important because the Seahawks now hold the head-to-head advantage over the Arizona Cardinals because of that win, obviously, and because they have the same record. Now the Seahawks jump up to leading that division, and they move up to the number 3 seed in the NFC playoffs, while the Cardinals drop all the way out of the playoffs to spot number 8, I want to say, just behind the Washington Commanders. So there's a lot riding on who's going to win this division, right? With the loss on Sunday, Arizona also had their 4-game win streak snapped with their lowest points output of the entire season. They fall out of first place, like I said, and now sit behind the Washington Commanders in the playoff race. And Seattle's defense really was the story of this game because you look at how Arizona was playing, over that 4-game, 3-game stretch, and they were averaging 29 points per game. And yesterday, Kyler Murray was sacked 5 times, and that's usually not something that should be considered anywhere near easy because Kyler Murray, because of his stature and his speed and just how much of an athlete he is, it's almost impossible probably to get him to the ground. He's probably the hardest quarterback to get to the ground or even lay a finger on because he's so agile and smaller than obviously a bunch of the quarterbacks. So to sack him 5 times, it obviously made an impact, and more so than that, I think holding the Cardinals to 49 total rushing yards between like 4 different guys is remarkable stuff by them. Leonard Williams played a great game, and their secondary too also had a great game as well overall. But even still, looking at Arizona, their defense has not been or had been playing great actually, and also did in this game. They only held the Seahawks to 16 points, and that's not bad at all. That gets you a win more often than not in today's NFL. But, their offense, and it goes back to Seattle's defense, they just completely dominated them. And, there was only really one offensive touchdown in this game by the Seahawks, which was Jaxon Smith-Njigba's touchdown in the first half. And that was the first touchdown allowed by Arizona's defense since their game against the Miami Dolphins about 3 weeks ago. So both defenses actually played a pretty decent game, but the Seahawks were just able to do a bit more on the offensive side of the ball. And, you look at the performances from the Seahawks, you look at Geno Smith. He also was sacked 5 times, but he threw a touchdown. He threw an interception as well, but he threw for 254 passing yards. Kenneth Murray led all rushers with 41 yards. And Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I think, continues to build on this impressive second-year, resume, this short resume that he's had. This year's by far been very, very well for him compared to last year where he had his moments. But you look at these numbers, you had 77 yards against the Cardinals, 110 yards against the 49ers, and 10 receptions, 180 yards against the Rams and 2 touchdowns. And also just the game before that, he had 69 receiving yards against the Buffalo Bills. So he's quietly building a very good, second-year resume for the Seahawks. So that's very, very encouraging for them. But on the other side, Kyler didn't have a bad game in terms of yards. He had 285. He threw an interception, but the rushing game was really bad. Trey Benson led all rushers with 18 yards and only 4 carries, and James Conner had 7 carries, but for only 8 yards as well. Just an abysmal day for the Arizona Cardinals trying to run the ball. Trey McBride really had a crazy game just by the numbers. He had 12 receptions for and 33 yards, but the Cardinals couldn't really do too much with that when it came to actually coming through and executing at the most critical points in this game. And at that point, I mentioned the big points in this game. The Cardinals were only 25% from third down. They converted on 3 of 12 opportunities that they had, and that's not really going to win you too many games, especially when the Seahawks converted on 50% of theirs compared to the 25% from the Arizona Cardinals. And then obviously the rushing disparity was what it was. But even still, you look at the penalties weren't too bad. The time of possession wasn't too bad either. So it's just really the offense highlighted by the third down conversions, how efficient one offense was to get in scoring positions as opposed to the Cardinals who, just really couldn't get anything going. They couldn't convert anything, and it showed why they only got 6 points overall. So in this game, there wasn't too much to talk about in terms of how it all played out because, there was only 22 points scored overall in this game. But the first points of this game actually came from the Arizona Cardinals. It didn't come until the start of the second quarter when the Cardinals went up 3-0. But after 6 punts to start the game, we had the 3-point lead by the Cardinals. Then the Seahawks had they had the only offensive touchdown of the game with about 1:14 left in the first half. That's when I mentioned how JSN scored that touchdown, and the Seahawks carried that lead, that 7-3 lead, into halftime. By no means is the game over, even though both teams really left a lot out there to be desired when it came to the offense. It's still only a 4-point game, so nothing's written off at this point. But the second half, it was pretty much more of the same from the Arizona Cardinals, and the biggest play of the day obviously came from the Seattle Seahawks defense when Arizona tried to convert on a 4th and 1. You had Kyler Murray kind of running out to his right, and he tried to float it over to his receiver, Michael Wilson. He throws it over his head right into the hands of Coby Bryant, the defensive back for the Seahawks, and he has a wide open path to the end zone from there, and he returns it all the way for a pick 6. And at that point, it made the score at 3-13 in favor of the Seahawks, and only a field goal for each team after that, and we have our final score. So overall, they play, it's funny because this game was very low scoring, very heavy on the defensive side of the ball, and then these teams play again, not this upcoming week, obviously, but the week after that, right? They're going to be in Arizona, and that game, I feel like it's going to be very different to what we saw on Sunday, right? For whatever reason, the defenses came to play, and for what we saw from Arizona to kind of drop an egg like that, I don't think that's very, telling of what this team is. They're way better than just scoring 6 points a game, right? I just talked about how they were averaging nearly 30 over their last 3 games, and I know Seattle's defense is probably better than some of the defense that they've played in that stretch, but 6 points is not how you characterize this Cardinals team. They're a lot better than that, trust me. And Kyler Murray's been playing a lot better than that too. So I feel like when they do face against each other the following week, after this upcoming week, it's going to be a lot different. And that only adds to the confusion, the maze that is the NFC West. Who is going to win this division is the question, because I think that's going to be the only way you get into the playoffs if you're a team in this division, right? Because everything is so tight in the NFC. Everything is so highly contested. You have the Commanders in there, the Vikings in there, the who else is it? The Packers in there as well. You have 3 teams from the NFC North in there battling for positions. And then you have the Commanders, obviously, right? And then it leaves really no room for a team from the NFC West outside of whoever's going to win this division. So the division race is not over, even though the Seahawks are now first again. All of these teams are still going to play each other at least one more time, and I have no idea who's going to win any of those games. As opposed to, the games outside of their division, I think San Francisco has the toughest schedule by far. They still got to play the Buffalo Bills, and they still got to play the Lions one more time as well. So they already lost to the Packers too on the road. So they have the toughest schedule, and I feel like if we're going to pick right now who's going to be the major contenders to win it, I don't think it's going to be the 49ers. I've been talking about it a little bit that I think their schedule now and where they sit with their record is not giving me any sort of confidence that they're going to win this division. So I'm not going to go with them. Then you have Los Angeles with a tough schedule as well. They still got to play Buffalo. Seattle also, isn't the easiest. Arizona's got the easiest schedule outside of the divisional opponents. So because of that, I think the easiest path to win this division is and belongs to the Arizona Cardinals. I think it's going to be either them or the Rams. I'm going to go with Arizona or the Rams to win this division. I'm still pretty high on the Rams, but I don't really trust the Seahawks too much. I don't really trust Geno. Their offense put up 16 points. It's not like they went out there and dominated the Cardinals like 32-6 or anything like that. They put up 16 points too. So it's not, again, like it's filled me with a bunch of confidence, right? So because of that, I think the Cardinals just played a really bad game. They're not going to score only 6 points again, really. So I have to believe they're better than that. They've shown me that they're better than that, and I like them a little bit more than the Seahawks. And same thing with the Rams. I think they have too much talent to at least not be in the conversation. So one of those teams is going to win the division. I don't think it's going to be the Seahawks, and I definitely don't think it's going to be the 49ers. So I think this whole game, the Seahawks and Cardinals game, is a perfect example of what this division has been the entire year. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know who's going to win, who's going to play better, and it's exciting, but also it's very hard to predict. So we're going to hope that picture clears up as we move along. But we have a couple more topics to get to on today's show. We're going to get to the final segment about the unanswered questions, looking at the AFC West. But also, there was a recent report around Aaron Rodgers and whether or not he was going to be in New York in 2025. I thought it was interesting because we never really talked about it, and it's been going on for a couple of days. So we're going to talk about that, all things New York Jets, all things Aaron Rodgers, and whether or not we think he's going to be there come next year in New York. So stick around. We're going to get to that in just a few moments.